Sean's been a member now for 11 months with us. So,
good guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy, and he's starting his own YouTube channel very soon. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does there. Because he's quite knowledgeable. He's a knowledgeable guy. And he has the gift of the gab from when we've met him in the chats, in the green room chats. So it'll be good to see how he gets on. So we'll certainly be plugging that when he starts.
What would you know about pressure?
Well, I have kissed a man.
You wanted a channel? You're gonna get a channel. Welcome to Horror on Tap, where I'm going to watch, review, and rate classic horror films that I have not seen. I've been meaning to do this for quite some time, and I wasn't quite sure how I was going to set it up or how I was going to do it. So pretty much I'm just going to be myself, that same lovable asshole that most people see, whether it's in person or maybe on a YouTube group chat video, maybe, perhaps. But basically what I'm planning on doing is watching these classic horror films that for some reason I've never seen. I'm going to give a brief review. I'm going to give a rating based on a 5-point beer system, and I will explain that here in just a moment. But first, today's beer. It is Great Lakes Midwest IPA. It's pretty darn tasty. So I'll be reviewing and rating each movie, being broken down into 4 categories, plus an overall assessment at the end. Those 4 categories will be plot, characters, kills, and production. And each category will be rated on a 1 to 5 scale based on beer. So, for example, a 1 is going to be a lager. A 2 is going to be a wheat beer. 3 is going to be a porter. 4, one of my favorites, the IPA. And 5 is the mother lode itself, the barley wine. So let's go ahead and get started here. So the very first movie that I was going to watch and review was one that I had decided on quite a while ago, and I knew that was going to be the first one. And that movie is going to be An American Werewolf in London. Released in 1981, directed by John Landis, starring David Naughton, Griffin Dunne, and Jenny Agutter, who was hot, by the way. So hot. Want to touch that, honey? The basic premise of the movie is 2 American college students who go to Britain to go backpacking across the country and get attacked by a werewolf. One of them is killed. That is Jack. And then David is wounded, and eventually the inevitable happens, turns into a werewolf. Of course, David finds a love interest in his caring nurse in the hospital. Can't blame him for that. They start to fall in love. He ends up going back to her place, hanging out, doing a little hibbity-dibbity. And then the transformation happens. He becomes the werewolf, goes and does a bunch of gruesome stuff. Wakes up in the zoo, has no memory of what he's done. Bunch of other stuff goes on. You don't need me to tell you. I'm sure you've probably seen it. The plot itself was pretty much a typical coming of werewolf story. Nothing particularly out of the norm, I wouldn't say. One of the things I really enjoyed about it was that it didn't stick to your typical horror tropes and things you would see in any other kind of werewolf movie. It really added a lot of comedy, a lot of slapstick type of stuff here and there. A little bit of sexuality, which is always nice. Stuck with the supernatural bits, but then added a little bit more of this and that. Another element that I liked was that after a while, a lot of the characters, or at least some of the characters in the movie, start to believe David that he actually may be a werewolf. Whereas I think a lot of times you don't quite get that. And understandably, I mean, why would you think somebody's a werewolf? Just seems kind of far-fetched to me, but the way they sort of go, you know what, maybe he is. Maybe he's not lying. Maybe he's not full of shit. Maybe we believe him. And then look into it. I really like that element. So, for the plot, I'm giving it a Porter. The characters in this movie were fantastic. Jack, at first I was like, oh man, they kill him off pretty early. You really don't get to know too much about the character or really see what the actor can do. Then of course he comes back later, looking freaking awesome. David, of course, great lead character. Nurse Alex, love her. Super hot, great actress. The doctor, Dr. Hirsch, I believe his name was. At first, he seems kind of like a dick a little bit, but then when you get to see more of what he's all about, he's actually a pretty intriguing character. And then, of course, you have all the characters in the Slaughtered Lamb. They're I don't even know how to put it. They're all a bunch of characters, and if you think at first you might think they're kind of weird, but then they seem like regular dudes, but then they're weird again, and then they're kind of regular again, and then a couple of them seem like they actually care about other people, where some of the guys in there seem like they don't. So yeah, the character depth was quite good in this movie, even despite the fact that there weren't really all that many of them as far as on-screen characters that have lines or even close-ups or anything like that. So given all that, with how little they really worked with and were able to bring out onto the screen with the characters that they had, that's going to be an IPA for me. Moving on to the kills. The first kill we see is Jack, when Jack and David get attacked in the wilderness after leaving the Slaughtered Lamb. Jack gets torn up pretty damn good. That's a pretty decent kill. You don't see it terribly long on screen, but you do see the effects there pretty quickly, and then of course later you see him a little bit more. The couple that's visiting the flat, they get torn up in the backyard. Not too bad. Pretty quick, pretty brief. Not too much to it. The guy not on the subway, but the guy who gets off the subway, the way they shot that was great. I'll get into that here in a minute. The kill itself, again, off screen, but you do see later the effects. Now moving to the end of the movie, the last kind of scenario when David comes out of the porno theater. That scene was actually really damn cool. The way they did the kills, and the cars running over the bodies and people flying through windshields and shit, and of course the David as the werewolf coming out through that roll down door and launching right onto the dude's neck. That was pretty sweet. So the kills, I'm going to give them a Porter, primarily based on the fact that a lot of them are really quick or off screen. If there were more of them or more visuals that were on screen, it probably would have gone up a little bit more, because what you do see is really good. There's just not enough of it in my mind. And what you got as far as the kills that were actually there, I feel like we could have seen a little bit more. They could have, expanded on the scene, made a little bit longer so you see more of the gore and things like that. But that's, again, just my opinion. So I'm going to stick with Porter. The final individual category is production. And for production, I'm going to look at everything from visuals to audio, soundtrack, score, Foley, gore, special effects, all that kind of stuff. So for An American Werewolf in London, Rick Baker did the effects, did a freaking amazing job. One of the first things I noticed was the Foley of the werewolf, the sound, that howl, absolutely terrifying. Even just watching a movie, you're sitting there watching it, and I'm watching it by myself, kind of in the dark. Lights are low. Not really one to watch a horror movie with all the lights on. So I'm sitting there watching it, and you get there. I probably don't do it justice, but you get that while Dave and Jack are walking, and it is freaking terrifying. So that was probably the first thing that really made me go, damn, this is going to be fucking good. Then the next big thing that really got me was the effects the makeup effects for Jack when he shows up in the hospital in David's vision or dream or whatever you want to call it. Just the way his skin's kind of hanging off, and the gore and the depth of all the effects that were applied to him were great. Nothing spared on the effects, that's for sure. The music was pretty good. Not a whole lot of music as far as a soundtrack, but the score was quite good. There were scenes where Dave was having a dream or a premonition of some kind, and the music where you see from his view reminded me a lot of Silence of the Lambs, which is kind of ironic, which of course came out much later. What was it? Maybe 9-10 years later. But the music, as I was watching it, and just the way it was shot, the first person views and things like that, and he's going through the woods and everything, it just really had a Silence of the Lambs kind of feel and sound and visual look to it, which of course was intriguing to me. Going back, what was it? I was going back to... so the one thing I wanted to go back to was the guy from the subway. The way that was filmed was actually pretty cool, where you get his view, and then you get a first-person view from the werewolf, but you never actually see the two together on screen until that very last shot, and you only see it very briefly at the top of the screen when you're looking down the escalator, and the guy is kind of laying on the escalator, and he's looking back to the direction that he came from, and just at the very top of your screen, you just slowly see the werewolf start creeping into the frame, and then it cuts to the next scene. It was very well done, and I can see why they did a lot of that. They did kind of the same thing at the very end, when the werewolf is in the alleyway. My guess would be because the puppeteer operating the werewolf was doing it from the rear, and they needed the back to be either up against something where they could hide the puppeteer or puppeteers. And in that one shot at the bottom of the escalator coming out of the subway, I feel like that was the same concept, the same idea, was that they wanted to bring it into the frame just enough that you can see it and you know he's there, but not so far where you see the whole body. And then of course you're going to have some puppeteer sticking out his bum. So anyway, for production, I gave this one a barley wine. Cream of the crop. Production was fantastic. No issues with that at all. Loved it. from the effects to the Foley, the music, the score, everything, just the way it was filmed was fantastic. So my overall assessment for An American Werewolf in London is going to be an IPA, which is pretty damn good. I love IPAs. I am drinking an IPA right now. So IPA is what I'm giving American Werewolf in London for all the reasons I've already discussed. Don't need to get back into that. So for right now, I think that's going to be it for me for today. Not sure what movie I'm going to do next just yet, but I will get into that here shortly. I do believe, I do hope. So I will do some research into that. I do have a running list of movies I got to get into, and so I will look into those and see what's going to be, and we will go from there. So until next time, go yourself. Bottoms up. Mm.